Hello, Namaskar. Welcome to my pod, the CAA Show. CAA, as all of you know, is Conversations and Analysis. My name is Juggi Bhasin. To become a subscriber, all you have to do is to press that red button on your screen. And subscription is, of course, completely free. Would also really appreciate if you could like this video and share this video with your friends. All right. So, as you all know, that Operation Sindoor is still on, and a lot of people are saying that Operation Sindoor 2.0 could be launched any day. And to discuss all that, I have a very, very interesting person today, an individual who wears so many different hats that sometimes I also get completely confused. Let me give you a little bit of a background to this person. This person is, of course, a Navy veteran. He is a former Navy aviator. He is a defense analyst. He is what I call an officer and a gentleman. He's also a loving father. He is a proud, caring parent. He's also a corporate trainer. He's an actor, a model, and he does theatre. He's also a very avid golfer, and you would be wondering that how can one individual wear so many different hats and do so many different roles. But yes, I know this individual, and I think you can see him on the screen. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Commander Deepak Adhar. Deepak, welcome to the show.
Hi, Juggi. Thank you so much. And I'm honored to be on the show. Thank you.
No, completely. It's our privilege to have you on the show. A man of so many different paths, so many different talents. It's wonderful to have you, Deepak. And by the way, one last introduction about Deepak, which I'd like to give, because Deepak is, of course, younger to me, but he would recall the 70s. 70s, you know, this was the era, Bollywood era of Shatrughan Sinha, Amitabh Bachchan, Shashi Kapoor. And this line which I remember from that, the line being Yaro Ka Yaar, and Deepak is just that, a Yaro Ka Yaar. He is such a great friend. So, Deepak, that's all you. So, Deepak, let's divide this program into now two parts. The first, let's talk a little bit about your role as a defense analyst, about what's going on in Operation Sindoor. And then I'd like to take our viewers through your personal journey, because that is so inspiring. What all veterans, armed forces people can do after they have hung up their boots. You inspire so many different people by all the different things which you do. But let's first start with the Operation Sindoor part of it. Now, Operation Sindoor 1.0, which some people say is still on, was primarily, as you would agree with me, an Air Force operation. There was, of course, some ground activity also. But the real news of Operation 1.0 was that the Navy was completely prepared, and some analysts feel that if the Navy had been ordered to take action, they would have decimated Karachi, probably large parts of Pakistan. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, Jaggi, I would like to believe as a naval officer, and actually truly so also. Because if we were to really see the disparity or asymmetry between the Pakistan Navy and the Indian Navy, I mean, honestly, there is hardly any comparison whatsoever. So there would have been, a complete maritime supremacy in the area where the Indian Navy fleet was operating. And even the F-bar of the Pakistan was all, focused towards the land frontiers, because they had the Indian Air Force to deal with. And so they could not have left much of their assets to take care of us. And with our carrier battle group equipped with MiG-29 aircraft, I think, there was really, it would have been a very, very asymmetric thing. So decimation is probably the right word that you used.
So yeah. Karachi would have been a prime target if the Navy had been given orders.
Yeah, I guess going by 71, when precisely the same thing happened, Karachi was ablaze, and it was thanks to the Indian Navy. We, in fact, celebrate Navy Day on the 4th of December, which is the evening when our missile boats had struck. And our Navy has grown immensely from those days of 1971, where we were just talking about missile boats, to now having guided missile cruisers, destroyer frigates, and that too so many of them.
Right.
With the state of the art, including BrahMos and whatever else, whatever is the package that's available. Correct. So certainly, the Navy would have come from seawards, and there would have been an absolute blockade. there would have been absolutely, no lifeline to Pakistan coming from the sea, no oil, no, supplies, nothing. And once they would have been choked, they would have anyway crumbled to their knees. It would have been actually like a siege for all practical purposes,
Siege of
because
such a large country like Pakistan, which
such
is
a
not
large.
funny, actually.
Yes. Yeah.
Which means that we had established air supremacy, as the reports of Operation Sindoor 1.0 suggest. And if the naval supremacy had also come into being, that means Pakistan would have been completely deadlocked in a certain sense.
Yes, sir, because there is Afghanistan on that side, which is anyway not a very friendly country as far as they are concerned. What used to be their so-called depth is no longer their depth, but another burning corridor for border for them. And from the seawards, if they were, contained, and from the air, as you know, the way we went with impunity, the way we struck, deep all the way to Rawalpindi, in fact, at will, where we wanted, when we wanted.
Correct.
So,
That's very interesting to know, which begs the question, Deepak, and the follow-up question, which I think you have already partly answered, but educate us a little bit more about this. That a lot of people feel that Operation Sindoor 2.0 is on the cards. If not now, when? It could be coming anytime. That's the thing. And there is a very strong feeling among a lot of people, especially among defense analysts like yours, that the Navy this time would be called into action, probably even more than the Air Force also. Is that a correct assumption, or we are reading too much into all this bit of kite flying which is going on?
yeah. No, so undeniably, the Navy had been biting on its bit, wanting to get in the race, and was actually held back, reined back, because we didn't want to escalate the battle. And, it was good that Pakistan asked for a ceasefire. Otherwise, the Navy was raring to go. I think Navy is a pretty strategic asset to use, and it's power projection anywhere on the planet. That's what the Navy is capable of doing. So I think unless we go into a full scale escalation, I mean, I think probably the Navy might not be the first responder. But one of the ways that it can be is by establishing, say, a maritime exclusion zone.
Yeah.
Declare those waters approaching Pakistan as hostile, and we say that it will be permitted to transit through that place. And once that happens, and just by cutting their supply lines without really getting into conflict, we can actually choke them and starve them if we want to. So that is one of the moves, the way we did with the Indus Water Treaty and the water from that side. So same kind of a way it can be, where then they are tempted to escalate, and if they do, then we can.
So this is something, Deepak, what you are suggesting is also what you are actually saying is something very, very important. And though, of course, these plans and all that would be, of course, with the Defense Ministry. We are basically surmising, or we are trying to take, trying to understand what could probably happen in the future. But you would say the Navy as an asset would probably used really for an extended operations or for long-term operations, not for a teach a lesson kind of an operation. For that, maybe Special Forces or the Air Force are actually, the right pick. So the Navy would come into action when you want to, as you say, completely ring fence Karachi and the lifeline of Pakistan. That's what you are saying.
Yeah. So for the shock, that's why we call the Navy the silent service. We are not really very visible, unlike the Air Force, which comes from the sky, supersonic speed, loud roar, and a lot of fireworks. So the Navy operates with stealth out at sea. You feel the impact of it, eventually. So for the shock and awe, probably, yes, the Special Forces and the Air Force and the missiles, which will be coming from that side. But yeah, from the long-term perspective, as far as economic blockade, as far as, essential blockade of, fuel, ammunition, all those kind of things, to, degrade the enemy's war fighting potential. That's what the Navy would be able to achieve.
Correct, correct. Now, to achieve all these aims, all these endeavors, there is a term which is frequently used, and if you can throw some light on this particular term, which even I don't understand completely, and this term which is used is a blue water navy. And they say that India is maybe not fully a blue water navy, it's on the verge of becoming a blue water navy. Because we, of course, the Navy people are aware of the fact that we have a 12,000 kilometer coastline which has to be guarded. Our maritime interests have to be guarded. Explain to our viewers what exactly is a blue water navy and how close we are to achieving that particular threshold.
Okay. So this term blue water and brown water navy actually comes. So as we go deeper into the ocean becomes blue, whereas close to the coast, the ocean tends to be brown because the continental shelf is there, the depth of water is not much, and it's relatively muddy. So that's more of a figurative way of saying that those navies which are coastal in nature, as you said, defensive, which are to protect the coastline, that would be a typical brown water navy. A blue water navy is which can actually operate anywhere on this planet where the oceans are and there is connectivity to it. So for that, one of the prime requirements is that the navy should be able to sustain itself at sea for prolonged
Right.
durations. So you don't have to keep coming back to refuel, you don't have to keep coming back for supplies, those kind of things. So typically a battle group which would be there operating on a deployment overseas, so that should be able to sustain itself for months. So how do we do that? So there are multiple ways. So first and foremost is that we have our group of friendly countries which are in near the theater of operation, where we can use their ports and go there and get ourselves refueled and replenished, etc. But in war, depending upon whom you are at war with, and so suddenly it's not necessary that the doors which were open normally would be open at that time. So you have to be more self-reliant. So therefore we have our own fleet auxiliary ships. We've got our tankers. We've got a couple of them. There is Deepak, Shakti, Jyoti, Aditya. So all of them are capable of sustaining the entire fleet by providing them all types of fuel, all types of provision, ammunition, anything out at sea without the requirement of any warship to come back into harbor. And similarly, even aircraft carrier for the aeroplanes to be deployed, aviation fuel to be available on them, so they would get limited by that. So that's what our blue water navy is capable of. We already have developed that ability enough. We have been doing overseas deployments in South China Sea for a long time as part of the Quad. Also, then we have been doing anti-piracy patrols in the Red Sea area also, and the Gulf of Aden area. So the Indian Navy has in the past 2 decades developed enough and more capability, practical experience of operating out at sea sustained without the need for ships to come back.
But
So
in terms of size and scope, in terms of number of vessels, so we are also a blue water navy. Besides, of course, what you have explained to us, but in terms of number of, let's say, frigates or destroyers or warships or missile, destroyers, all these, the numbers are there. The numbers are pretty good, you would say.
Absolutely. I think we are undeniably, probably the third largest as far as principal combatants are concerned,
Okay.
which is frigates, destroyers. Yeah. And that too with our own domestic ability of ship production. We are quite Atmanirbhar in that. So we are not even dependent on, In fact, we just got our last vessel, and that's the most important operative word. Last foreign built vessel was just delivered to the Indian Navy last month. So from here on, we are going to be totally self-reliant as far as warship production is concerned. So and again, it totally depends upon what kind of mission there is. So if there is an amphibious mission required somewhere, or if there is, overall air superiority and maritime, exclusion that has to be established. So we have got carrier battle groups. We have got two carriers right now. There is Vikrant and there is Vikramaditya. We have already got a sanction for the third carrier to be indigenously produced now. So with a air element there, with ships to provide a screen around that aircraft carrier to protect it from missiles, from aircraft, from submarines, from other surface ships. So that way we are absolutely self-sufficient, and we have enough war reserves also, that in the event of some ships being in refit or anything like that, still our combat potential as a service will be maintained. In fact, we actually look at a two-theater war, in the Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal also, and to be able to sustain it simultaneously. That's the way the Navy is.
You mentioned Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal. Which is a more theater, which is of more importance to us, where we need to establish control? Because now there has all this talk of establishing, there is talk of establishing a secret submarine base, I think somewhere near Andhra Pradesh. Then there is talk of the Nicobar Islands being developed into a major, naval base also. So is the Bay of Bengal the real theater of action? But obviously the Arabian Sea we cannot ignore because of the Pakistan connection. Which one is more strategically important?
I think they are both equally important strategically, because as far as the Arabian Sea is concerned, because of Gulf of Aden and Suez Canal and most of the oil coming from that side, that cannot be neglected. However, when we talk about Bay of Bengal, because of the Andaman Islands and they straddling the 8-degree channel there, Malacca Strait, which is one of the busiest, what I call, So it's important for both of them. I mean, you can't give one more predominance over the other. And if it's going to be a China-centric conflict, then probably Bay of Bengal and the eastern side is going to be more critical. And if it is going to be Pakistan, then it is going to be the west. So I don't think we can neglect one at the expense of another.
Right. Now, this was an overview, Deepak. Let's come to some very specific points about the Navy deployment in the future, as it would happen. There was a term which I remember which was used in the 70s. I don't know if that term is still used. It used to be called gunboat diplomacy. And you remember it was during the time of the Vietnam War, and all these kind of terms were used at that time. So maybe a modern version of gunboat diplomacy again might come into being, or has always been there. We don't talk about it because of the fact that there are a situation with certain countries, for instance with Turkey, and the recent incident where a warship, Turkey was trying to interfere when the warship was going towards for exercises with France and I think with Cyprus, if I'm not mistaken. Now, do we have the appetite? My first question is for gunboat diplomacy. Because there's one thing to strategy on the board, but on actual waters, is India now in that? Does it have the scope? It has the appetite. It has the that demeanor that yes, we can also indulge in it if the need for that arises. That's my first question to you.
Yeah, so I certainly think that we are building that appetite. We do have it significantly, because the fact is that we are, one of the strongest navies on this planet, and we are providing net security provider to the Southeast China Sea nations, and as well as Indian Ocean littoral states also depend on us as net security provider. So we do have the capability. Plus, we have aircraft also in support of that. We have got the P8I Poseidon aircraft, which has got a range which can operating from India or from a friendly airfield can provide surveillance and advance warning, etc. So I mean, we can take it through. So gunboat diplomacy is kind of threat, giving a sense that you've got the power and you are wielding it, but then when you are called out, whether you will be able to follow it through or not, that's the whole thing. And I think we have the capability to do that, and that is what helps you to rattle the saber.
So that would be a political decision, really.
Yeah,
but you are saying in terms of a military firepower, in terms of military might, we have that capability already exists, you are saying.
Yes, absolutely. Because as I said, with the air power also available, Poseidon, etc., can provide you to protect. And most of the times, also, our ships don't operate single operations. Like gunboat was earlier. It used to be a boat, a missile boat, or a corvette, or small.
Correct.
Right now, we generally operate in groups of 2-3 ships together. With one would be a tanker kind of a thing, and there will be 2 destroyers or a destroyer and a frigate providing each other mutual support. So that kind of a thing, it's a pretty lethal combination. And they can, sustain at least, I would say 80% of the navies of the world could be handled by just that little group of ships which are deployed, for showing our flag.
And when they say that the force projection of a country in terms of outreach, see, you can dominate the skies with air power, and for instance, in the recent Iran conflict between Israel and the Israelis completely dominated the skies. But you still could not really, you are not stepping into the country. But with the Navy, the advantage to a lot of people say is that you really want to force project yourself in terms of total domination. Then the Navy really comes into being. Is that a correct, understanding of the projection of the Navy, that even more than the Air Force and the troops and etc., the Navy actually is something which will advance your interests like no other arm of the armed forces?
Absolutely. So if you see the Air Force, they have got a limited time on task, in the sense you can take off, you've got a range, you reach on target.
Correct.
But then how long can you continue to be there? You have to finally go back. You can provide air-to-air refueling, but then how many crew to constantly this thing? You can't provide weapons to be reloaded in flight. Those kind of things. So per force, for a shorter duration, or rather very short duration, the Air Force can come, deliver, and go back. But otherwise, their ability to hold or to sustain is much limited. The Navy, on the other hand, by virtue of, the ocean being there, we can almost to the doorstep of any country which has got a coastline. Until the time you are, out of the maritime boundary per se of that country, the territorial waters of that country, it is not, you have right of passage and you can be there. And you can keep there for months while you are trying to negotiate with the political dispensation. So the threat in being is there very much outside while the diplomatic channel is happening. So you can keep it up, and that is one of the biggest thing. And plus, if it's an amphibious force, you can even be carrying with you, which, if required, you can either do an assault landing on a beach,
or you can go inside.
Or even with an aircraft carrier there, helicopter, so heliborne insertion can happen. So, even the army can be taken there. So the Navy actually comprehensively carries all the 3 things. It carries air power also to dominate, and it has got the sea power as it is, and plus it can carry troops also. So that's what makes the Navy. Otherwise, for the army also, typically to cross the border, it's very, unless there is either the Navy which carries it or the Air Force which carries it, unless it's a neighbor, direct neighbor. And also, when an aircraft overflies your airspace, it is your sovereign airspace, and if it is overflying that, it can become a major issue. Similarly, when there are boots on ground and your uniform of another country, accepting troops in your country is, something which is a no-no. But The good thing about the Navy is that, because the ocean is international, you can be there just, you can be 12 miles away from, that country where you are, and you can have your whole might.
That's the exclusion zone you're talking of. The beyond the exclusion zone, then the international waters come in, and anybody can fly over there.
Yeah, so territorial waters you require permission. That is where
Right.
sovereign right is exercised.
Right.
But anything beyond territorial waters, navigation is very much permissible. Yeah, so it's not so high on the escalatory ladder for the Navy to be there, as for boots on ground to be there,
Right.
or as for airspace violation to happen.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying.
Correct. Now, two or three very specific questions. One is aircraft carriers. You're a former naval aviator, so you probably are absolutely the right person to answer this. We already have two aircraft carriers. There's talk of another third one which is coming. But then a lot of experts feel that these aircraft carriers the concept really is becoming outdated, very expensive, and if they take a hit, then thousands of crores actually go literally down the ocean, as it were. And a lot of people feel you should be investing more in destroyers and frigates and missile destroyers or nuclear-armed submarines, really, nuclear-powered submarines. Is that a correct assessment, that the day and age of the aircraft carrier is probably coming to an end?
Well, I think there have been naysayers of that, and they have been there for a long time. Ever since the Second World War, that's what they said. Once the missile era came, they said that's the end of the, aircraft era. But that really wasn't true. And many of those countries who didn't join the race of, aircraft carriers, for instance, including China, which has now gone in for an aircraft carrier at this stage. So I think air power will always remain a very integral requirement, because even for a fleet to operate and for them to have air dominance in that area, so that they are not harassed by enemy aircraft or enemy missiles. That's there. Second thing is that air power, which is integral, also gives you that much more reach, in the sense that your aircraft operating from the aircraft carrier hundreds of miles ahead is able to engage the enemy surface combatant that much ahead of there, before they can even probably detect you. You can sink them, that kind of a thing. Otherwise, when two ships come in and they have to fight with each other, they have to come into gun range or missile range of each other, and usually that is almost the same. So when you fire and the other person fires, but the moment you have got integral air, that changes the game altogether. And aircraft carriers are pretty expensive. And apart from just the cost of acquisition, even the capability and ability to be able to operate them, because they are pretty complex machines to operate. So it's not so easy to get. So India has had this experience continuously now from the early 60s. Since we got Vikrant, of continuously operating aircraft carriers. So now that experience is something that you can't take away from us, and that is something which puts us in an exclusive league of nations who are capable of doing that. So another country, even if it buys an aircraft carrier, for it to be able to fully exploit it properly to its potential, it would take a very, very long time. Even the Russians also don't have that kind of experience as we have, as far as aircraft carrier operations are concerned.
So this will stay. This concept is not going away in a hurry. This is going to be one of the mainstays of the Indian Navy.
Yeah, I think, and the way the trajectory of our nation is also, we are a rising economic power. We are looking at, we are already in the top 3, and we are, probably vying for leadership. So if that is the case, where you have to have, influence on the entire globe, then if you are not going to have an aircraft carrier, then I don't think it can be in synergy with your aspirations as a. So earlier, when it was Nehruvian, and when it was that we are only limiting ourselves to where we are, and those kind of things, it was okay to say carrier or no carrier. But now,
it's a different ball game.
Absolutely. So when we are blasé about it, and we have our shirt button open, and we are strutting on the international ramp, so I don't see any reason, and we can't do that without an aircraft.
Correct. And also, quickly, a word also about these second strike capability of the Arihant class submarines. nuclear power submarines which we have. This also is a game changer, you would say.
100%. It is absolutely in alignment with our nose first strike doctrine.
Yeah.
Because if you don't have a second strike capability and you call
Yeah.
yourself a nuclear power
Correct.
and you say no first strike,
Yeah.
it makes no sense.
Yeah.
So now this gives us credibility that
Right.
we never have to do nuclear saber rattling,
Right.
because we don't want to use it. First instance, we are equipped all right.
Yeah.
And if someone were to use it against us, then we have the second strike capability.
We have the second.
Is again something very rare. Very few countries have that. And so just provides credibility to us, much more nuclear credibility than anybody. Yeah.
Now, Deepak, these 2 or 3 ports have been in the news. Sir Creek, this Pasni port in Pakistan, even the Chittagong port, which is there in Bangladesh. Very briefly, because I think we are our Zoom call is going to end in another 8 or 9 minutes, so we have to answer some other questions also. But very briefly, tell us, what is the importance? Why is so much strategic importance being given? And tomorrow, if a conflict breaks out, do you think that there could be a bid for Sir Creek, Pasni, all these other places, Chittagong? Just tell us of the significance of these ports.
Yeah. So, Pasni does not really have too much. Sir Creek does not have too much of a naval relevance, really. It's actually a more border security force issue, because it's a riverine area, and it is more of a border dispute of interpreting whether it is the center of the estuary which is to be the boundary, or the east coast of the eastern bank of that estuary. So the Navy is not really involved in that as much. There is a secondary implication that the exclusive economic zone, which would result, depending upon which is the border which is accepted, would increase by about 250 square miles or something like that.
Right.
So that. But yeah, as far as Pasni is concerned and as far as Chittagong is concerned, they are important, and it's part of the China's attempt of even trying to have that pearls around us, the string of pearls as they call it, to encircle India, because they are not as blessed as us when it comes to access to the oceans, and therefore they want to kind of contain us by getting there. So certainly they are of interest, and Chittagong, already we have done it once in the past also. 71 Chittagong was.
I wasn't very clear about that. Okay, Chittagong we have. Okay.
Yes, Cox's Bazar and Chittagong.
Cox's Bazar.
That's how we managed to have the Eastern Pakistan Army to surrender, because we had totally control over that area.
Right.
So same way, even Pasni. So if it is going to become important, and if it is that, and we really want to blockade Pakistan, then certainly that is going to be an area of interest for her. And yes, in our war games, we would certainly have to factor on how are we going to be doing it. So yes, it will certainly.
Or it's already factored, you are saying. It's already, this is not something which is something new, which is these points are, strategic points are already there in the planner's mind, that yes, something will be done in the event of a full-fledged war.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Okay, so that's good to know, Deepak, that we are in safe hands with the Navy. You have explained so many different points. Now, I want to take you very, very briefly, because actually I think I would need to do another podcast with you on your personal growth, because that is such a wide-ranging and such an interesting subject. But still, spend a couple of few minutes, 3 or 4 minutes, and explain to us. Now, you are a corporate trainer. Well, corporate trainer, a lot of people from the armed forces, after they hang up their boot, they do go into corporate training. So that's not surprising. But besides being a corporate trainer, you're an actor, you're a model, you're a theater person. And I should be knowing, because I've acted with you on stage. What was the drive for you to get into all these different fields? How did you even think about it? Somebody, a civilian like me, it becomes naturally, okay, I want to try theatre and all that. But for an armed forces person, who has retired and who's moving on in life, how did all this come about, this change, this transformation in your life?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't really want to take too much credit for it. I mean, there has been a lot of destiny involved. It
Okay.
was opportunities. It was that opportunities knocked. Now, point is, maybe they would have knocked on many other people's doors also, but probably people, shut the door on it because they didn't want to be distracted from it,
Right.
that job they were doing. I, however, personally believe that, you get life just once, but if you can live it right, then once is enough. So you know I mean, even when I left the navy and I went on to join the corporate, it was I the easiest thing for me was to join the airlines because I was already a pilot, and that's
Sure.
what most of my colleagues did. It made
Yeah.
sense, common sense.
Yeah.
So it was actually quite weird and stupid that instead of earning money flying planes, I was spending money in fees in a business school trying to study, with my professors who were younger than me. So, but yeah, that was the way I saw it. That you get just like once, and why not try something new? And it helps you to grow, and it keeps the challenge on, because otherwise you tend to stagnate in life.
Correct.
Whatever
Correct.
you are doing, once you become an expert in that, then now what from here, like it was famously said about Everest, that after he climbed it, he said that
Where
the saddest thing is now there are no more
there are no
mountains
worlds
to
to
climb.
conquer. That's right.
Yeah, no words to conquer. So
Correct.
at least this gives me another enemy.
Correct. But which one is your favorite? Let's say from acting, from theater, from modeling, from corporate training, from all these things. Which one is really, really your favorite?
Yeah, I mean, I really, really think that corporate training was a close second, because it's a very, very satisfying thing, especially when you make an impact and when you find your participant group, giving you a feedback saying that it really helped them, etc. But I would still go with theater as number one, and I'm sure you'll agree with me as a fellow actor, that I think it is the greatest of arts, because it incorporates everything. You have to dance also, you have to sing also, you have to emote also, you have to do that all live with
Yes.
no cuts and no retakes. And same play you are doing 10 shows, but each show is a new show, and you can't let your guard down anywhere. You have to compensate for your fellow actor. Suppose gets the lines or something happens, and to salvage the thing, the kind of teamwork that is involved in that.
Correct.
The,
And if I can,
I
I
think.
can share this one incident because I have been with Deepak on one of these theater experiences. You recall that story. If Deepak, you allow me to tell that story very quickly. I think we just have 2 or 3 minutes left. That you were an armed forces person and you had very senior officers at a naval base where you had performed. And in one of the roles, I think you had to play a transgender, if I'm not mistaken. And and I think it was a very senior naval officer. And he says, Deepak, how are you doing a role like this? And Deepak said, sir, but I'm so confident as an armed forces officer that I can do anything I want now, even in my acting now. Is that correct, Deepak?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, he refused to shake hands with me because it was so convincing that he
You
actually
were so
thought probably I
convincing.
transited.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Deepak, finally, we're just completely out of time. One last quick question. Golfing. Now, a lot of people play golf. That's not the point. But you are very passionate about golf. And I think one of the reasons why you're moving from Delhi to Bangalore, which I know is also golfing, because of you love the game so much. What is this connection of golfing with human beings? Is it something on a different otherworldly level? I want to talk to us a little bit very quickly about this, because I get the feeling it's like a different kind of a connection which you have. It's not just a game or a sport which you do. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
I think absolutely. I believe that golf is actually life misspelled. So they have four LIFEGOLF. So it's like that. I think the amount you learn about life from
Yeah.
golf, I think you can't. It gets you absolutely close to nature. That's the second one, because you play over 4 hours in that kind of an environment. Uh, it's not competitive in the sense that the only person that you are competing with is actually yourself and not the other person. Because if another person is playing well, there is nothing you can do about that, you have to play better than him, and it's not a return shot that you are giving or anything. So
Right.
I think that's what we need to do in life also, that rather than competing with others, if we were to compete with ourselves. So
Ourselves, yeah.
that's
And so, on this note, I come to the end of this particular podcast. And thank you, Deepak, so much for giving us your time and giving us insights on what could happen if Operation Sindoor 2.0 is launched. What are the capabilities of our Navy? What our strategy should be in case a conflict breaks out. But above all, also thank you so much for giving us insight into human behavior, into the aspirations of the human mind, because you, as a former Navy officer, how you have grown, how you are dabbling into so many different things, enjoying yourself. You are golfing. You are a man of so many different talents and so many different paths. So thank you once again for giving us an insight into your life, which is, I'm sure, inspiring to all of us, especially to the younger generation. Goodbye and cheers from my end.